Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with veteran Denver jazz saxophonist Keith Oxman. Along with being an active educator these days, he is now promoting the release of 2017's East of the Village CD. Since he was 12, he has had his hands on the sax, and that instrument would take him to stages with cats like Sonny Stitt, Mel Torme, Louis Bellson, Phil Woods, the Buddy Rich Big Band, Tom Harrell, and the great Jack McDuff, and many more. He's a stellar cat with plenty to say, so please dig this interview, my friends.
So let's go ahead and dive right in here and get right to it. Let me ask you about East of the Village. Talk to me about this album, kind of take me into the studio, and let me know how you feel about this album and the afterglow of it being produced and finalized.
The three of us were working at a place here in town called Nocturne. We had a chance to do like a residency for 2 months, and we played every week. Started developing a pretty large repertoire, and they weren't necessarily things that were done a lot. And then Tom Burns, who owns Capri, had offered to record us, and we tried to do it in December of I think of 2015, and everything failed, all the equipment. We had problems with the organ, we had problems with the recording equipment, and then, so we sort of put it on hold, and then Tom called me a couple months later and said, just go into, Colin Booker's studio and just get it done. And so we went in there, I think it was April 9th, we went in there one afternoon and just did it.
Well, let me ask you about your life. Let me go back a little bit in your lineage. Where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in Denver.
So how did you get into jazz?
Well, it was through a lot of different things. My father was a wholesale record distributor. My folks weren't particularly musical or big music fans, but I at least was around it. I think I got into it, through being in school, and I don't remember exactly what did it. I think the one thing that happened was in like ninth grade or so, I heard a recording of Charlie Parker, and that just went through me like a knife, and I said, that's what I want to do. And I had a teacher about the same time that I had gotten who was very inspirational and helped me a great deal. And then I started sitting in with a lot of the older musicians around town, and, I just got drawn into the magic of this wonderful art form.
Talk to me about your higher education. Where did you go to school, and how did that help you as a musician?
Well, I think, to be honest with you, I think being around the musicians on the street helped me more than going to school. But I went to Denver University, to the Lamont School of Music, and I had a couple of really great teachers. But a lot of the teachers, I did not probably get as much as I did from the great musicians that were playing on the streets. But yeah, I went to school at Lamont School of Music. I had one jazz teacher that was a huge influence on me. He was a great player too. His name was Gene Rush. And then I had a clarinet professor who also had a great influence on me. His name was Ray Kireilis, Kireilis. Those guys just had a huge impact on me. Yeah, I can't say that though for the other professors necessarily, but those were the only two that really inspired me to think and to pursue, and they were great.
Kind of, if you lean back in the easy chair and think about your career since you got out of school and just kind of the beginnings to now, how would you sum up your career? How do you feel about the players you played with, the recordings that you've made, and the progress that you've made as a musician up to this point in your life?
I feel really good about all that, about the people I've been fortunate enough to get to play with and all of that. I don't know that I've ever felt really great about where I'm at. I think most musicians might tell you that about themselves. There are things that I want to still get into, and I tend to see negatives in my playing and try to focus on those, and so I'm not that comfortable, although I'm not uncomfortable with things. I'm happy with where I'm at as a musician, but I'm sure hoping that I get to a different level before I'm out of here.
So let me ask you this: why do you love jazz?
I don't know that I can even put that into words. I just know that when I heard a lot of these players that meant so much to me, they just, I can't put into words what that did to me, but it was it's certainly a discipline that takes a great amount. It takes some intellectual prowess, and it takes a lot of hard work and practice. And one of the things I do love is I see that this is a lifelong pursuit, and there's always more to do, and there's always a challenge there, and I think it's just something that can happen over a very long period of time. As far as loving what I hear, I can't put into words exactly why I just absolutely love John Coltrane and Charlie Parker and Hank Mobley and Clifford Brown and Bud Powell. There's just something about it that's so real and so great and so mentally, there's such a great balance of heart and mind with those great players.
So let's whittle that list down. You've talked about Bud, you've talked about Bird, you've talked about all these cats. If you could get into a time machine and see someone live, the DeLorean, so to speak, where would you go? Who would you want to see live?
Well, I'd love to see Beethoven. But
there you go.
If we're talking about jazz guys, Bird and Train for sure. There are other great players. I'd love to see Clifford and Bud Powell. Some of the great heroes of mine I got to see Joe Henderson and I got to see Joe Henderson. I got to see Sonny Rollins. I actually got to play one night with Sonny Stitt, which was just amazing. And I saw Sonny Stitt, I think, 10 different nights.
Wow.
So some of those guys I got to see, and like I said, I even got to play with Sonny one night, which was just, I wish I had a recording of that night. I think I had just turned 20.
Wow, that's awesome. Let me ask you this. Of all the people that you played in front of and all the recordings you put out there, what's one of the nicest things a fan has said to you about your work?
Well, I think the thing that always feels good to me, not necessarily said to me about the recordings, but there was one night I was playing at El Chapultepec, and there was a guy, he's a saxophone player, fine player. He doesn't live here, but he said he was driving by El Chapultepec. It was a summer night, and the doors were open. He said, and I drove by. He said, I couldn't see who was playing, but once I heard the sound, he was, I don't know if he's walking by. He must have been walking by, but he was stopped at that light there on 20th and Market. He said, I couldn't see who was in there, but he said, then the saxophone started playing. I knew it was you. I just wanted to come in and say hi. I think that was really nice for me, to have a sound that somebody identified with and could tell who it was. That meant something to me. Especially from a fine musician like John is, that really, the fact that he recognized me just from, a few notes, that was really great.
So have you always been a natural at being a musician? Have you ever been nervous, or does the stage just make sense to you?
Well, no, I don't have any stage fright anymore, and I'm totally willing to screw up and I'm comfortable with the idea of making mistakes and all that. I don't think anybody's out there wishing me ill, so if I really screw up, oh well. No, I don't feel nervous. I don't feel like I've been a natural at all. In fact, my first private teacher told my mother, I found out years later, he had told her that I was the least talented of all the students he'd ever had. I don't know why a teacher would do that, but that was in the 60s, and I was not particularly, I was always like last chair in the school bands. I didn't excel in public school at all with it.
So let me ask you this, kind of getting to the essence of who you are. Everyone has a version of who you are, your family, your friends, those that you play live for. But when you wake up and face the world, who do you think you are?
I wake up, and I think I'm somebody who's very lucky to be doing what I want to do. I get to teach here at East High School. I really love the kids. I don't always love the adults. In fact, oftentimes I dislike them a lot, but I really like the kids, and I feel very lucky to be part of that. I feel very lucky to be playing. I just feel like a very lucky soul. I get to do the things that make me happy, and I don't have to go through. I see colleagues of mine, they come to school, it's like, oh my God, 5,000 days till retirement, I can't wait. I'm not even thinking about that, so I feel very fortunate. That's who I think I am, I guess.
I like that. That's a great way to wrap everything up. Keith, thank you for taking some time out for me. Thank you for the music. I'm looking forward to spinning East of the Village on the show.
Oh, thanks a lot. I appreciate it, Joe. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Denver, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Keith for his time, his honesty, and all those stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit Neon Jazz at youtube.com, or for all things Neon Jazz, the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.